Christian Bryant, and this is In the Loop. It's a loop that includes all of you watching at home or wherever you are. All are welcome within the metaphorical loop. In tonight's show, a new Nobel Prize winner has not shied away from critiques of Facebook and the spread of misinformation on social media. And we're breaking down what you might call a pandemic of rude, basically asking the question, why is everyone so angry these days? But first, our top story. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day. But for a long time, it was only known as Christopher Columbus Day, which first became a federal holiday in 1937. We all learned this in school. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and arrived in the Western Hemisphere. Only, contrary to how it was taught in class for a long time, Homeboy wasn't exactly a heroic discoverer. He was more of a violent conqueror, and for years, the holiday was a constant reminder of colonial oppression for many indigenous tribes. Before Columbus arrived, indigenous people had long been self-sufficient with fully sustainable communities. Native American activists argue it makes no sense to celebrate a man who enslaved people and discovered a place where others already lived. The very first seed of an Indigenous Peoples Day was planted at a UN International Conference of Discrimination in 1977. More than 10 years later, the first US state to officially recognize the day was South Dakota. Today, a total of 14 US states and the District of Columbia no longer acknowledge Columbus Day. Changing the day's name and meaning does not undo the damage done, but it does provide opportunities to celebrate the lives and cultures of Native Americans and their resilience, despite the many hardships they were put through over the years. Recently, many of those hardships have stemmed from the COVID-19 pandemic. As waves of the COVID-19 pandemic slammed the country, American Indians and Alaskan Natives were dying at disproportionately high rates. Now, more than a year and a half into the pandemic, while other parts of the country can't agree on mask usage and struggle with low vaccination rates, many tribes have made sure to make the most of the tools available. Currently, Indigenous people have one of the highest vaccination rates in the country. Newsy's Allison Herrera shows us how the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma is using their sovereignty to better protect themselves and others around them.
Cherokee Nation citizen Miss Mita Nix likes to begin her class with a song. Miss Mita, as she's known, has taught at Cherokee Nation's language immersion school in Tahlequah, Oklahoma for nearly 10 years.
The singing starts our day. It sets the tone for the day. And I've always done it. That's just something I've done in my class.
Miss Mita grew up in Jay, Oklahoma, and learned the language from her mother, sisters, and brothers, who were all fluent speakers.
We were around it so much, so once I actually started learning the language, it was kind of like deja vu. It was there. It just needed some help coming out.
The school went virtual when the pandemic hit, and more than 400 students were sent home with a laptop and a Wi-Fi hotspot to access the internet, which can be difficult in rural Oklahoma. It took a toll on students and teachers. Miss Mita is glad to be back in the classroom this fall, speaking Cherokee. She feels even better because of the mask mandate Cherokee Nation put in place at their two schools, Immersion School and nearby Sequoia School. It's something that protects her, a first language speaker, the students, and the larger community.
But with the variant, which we started to see in the summer, we said we got to go back.
After listening to his leadership team, doctors and scientists, Cherokee Nation's Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. said the decision to mandate masks was pretty simple.
What they told me was we have to protect our people with masks and we have to encourage vaccines. Very simple from my standpoint, and I said let's do it. It's worked here in our building. I think Cherokee Nation government buildings have been the safest place in any community in this region because we've adhered pretty strictly to this.
Oklahoma public schools had not been able to mandate masks, despite a huge surge in COVID cases that occurred in late summer, just as school was about to start up. That's because last spring, Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt signed an executive order banning mask mandates, something Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. doesn't understand.
A lot of the critics of masks in school seem to be saying we want our schools back. We don't want to be like we were a year ago and have to go virtual. Well, if you want that, the surest way to do it is to mask up and make it a requirement for everybody.
But the governor's ban on mask mandates doesn't apply to the Cherokee Nation. The reason comes down to one word: sovereignty.
Because we were here before the United States was founded or before a single state was established, including the state of Oklahoma. Our presence in the state presents opportunities for us to do things differently, and COVID has presented many opportunities to do things differently, not the least of which is a mask mandate, even though there was a state law that said that no school could do it. Didn't apply to us. We operate our own schools.
Masks aren't the only tool Cherokee Nation is using to stop the spread of the virus. Testing at this school is just one part of the puzzle to keep people safe. Both Sequoia and Immersion schools test their students 2 times a week for COVID-19. And vaccines are mandatory for students who are eligible for them if they want to participate in after-school sports.
Receive the swab test, then the 15-minute timer starts.
Immersion School Principal Jeremy Hammer says the school staff has the testing routine down, like a well-choreographed dance.
So they're steering that vehicle?
Yeah, steering that vehicle.
When parents go through this testing line and they know their kid is masked up and they go into the classroom and we do all these things to keep them safe, a peace of mind is what you feel over the school. And parents drop their kids off with the peace of mind, knowing that we've done everything in turn to protect them.
Parent Tashantre Dorset does feel peace of mind when she drops her son Cooper off at school.
Cherokee Nation from the beginning had a very well thought out plan. At this particular institution, you have the elders and the oldest members of the tribe, probably the most concentration of fluent speakers, and our future generations that will hold our traditions and our language. So great care was taken.
Testing and mask mandates have paid off. There have only been 11 positive cases since the beginning of the school year, and Cherokee Nation has a 65% vaccination rate. By comparison, some Oklahoma schools had to shut down because of outbreaks of the virus. Cherokee Nation even supplied masks to nearby public schools who put mask mandates in place despite the state ban.
Pitter patter, these little feet going up and down the hall. It just makes you feel good.
And for Miss Mita, she's happy to do whatever it takes to get kids back in school.
I missed the kids, and I said we needed them just like they needed us. And I really appreciate, our chief helping us.
Cherokee Nation doesn't know when they're going to drop the mask mandate, but for now, it's one of the tools they can use to keep elders, first language speakers, and their future generation safe and learning in the classroom.
Here to talk with us a bit more about that story is Newsy's Allison Herrera. Allison, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on ITL and making yourself available. We love having new friends of ITL come onto the show. With your story, you've just told us about one tribal nation in Oklahoma, but there are 38 other federally recognized tribes there. How have they fared during the pandemic, and how have they kept their citizens safe?
Well, thanks so much for having me on the show. And so a lot of the tribal nations, early on in the pandemic, they had closed their tribal offices, they had closed their casinos. Those employees and employees of their other businesses went home. They never missed a paycheck. The tribal nation was able to pay them for the time that those businesses were closed. And when vaccines became widely available in December, or became available in December, the Indian Health Service, who tribes work with, and that's the main provider of healthcare for tribal nations, they made a priority to vaccinate their healthcare workers, their emergency responders. Cherokee Nation, as I mentioned in the piece, even they put on the top of their vaccination priority list first language speakers, because Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. has really made it a priority to preserve and protect the language. And so he felt like, a lot of these people are elders, culture bearers in the community, and he really wanted to protect them by making those vaccinations available to them. And then after, a few of the tribes, after they had vaccinated their own citizens, they opened it up to all Oklahomans. You didn't have to be a tribal citizen to get a vaccine.
One of the things that I'm curious about is, in thinking about the Cherokee Nation and thinking about, using sovereignty as a way to mandate mask wearing, what other sort of creative tools have tribes employed around the country to really help keep people safe?
Well, the biggest example that comes to mind is the Oglala Sioux tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe in South Dakota. In spring, after the pandemic hit, they decided that they were going to install checkpoints into their reservation. It's a state and federal road, and said, we are really concerned about the spread of COVID-19 on our reservation coming, and these roads came in and out of their reservation. So they decided that they were going to restrict non-essential visitors. Anybody that didn't live there, that didn't have a relative there, or that weren't there for going there for an emergency, they said, you can't cross through here. You have to find another way. Well, this was really at odds with South Dakota's governor, Kristi Noem. And she even threatened the tribe with those two tribes with legal action. They said, you cannot threaten us with legal action. This is within our sovereignty, and this is within our rights to protect our citizens.
Was there any criticism directed toward the Cherokee Nation for mandating masks at their schools, particularly criticism from the governor?
Not that I saw, but even if there was, just like I said with Kristi Noem from the governor of South Dakota, there's nothing that he can do. He can't order Chuck Hoskin Jr. to tell Sequoia and Immersion School, drop those mask mandates. So while I'm sure, there are other issues that the state of Oklahoma and the governor has criticized the Cherokee Nation about, particularly when it comes to their reservation status, this was not one of them.
Allison Herrera, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being on ITL.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, we're boldly going where I go every few minutes or whenever there's a lull in conversation. Social media, we're hitting on today's trending topics. Social media can be a pretty noisy place, right? So instead of having you wade into the fray, we dove in and picked out some of what's trending online. Just make sure you say something nice about the show in the comments section, okay? Here's what's trending. Pharmaceutical company Merck wants in on the COVID treatment game. On Monday, Merck asked the FDA to authorize for emergency use its new pill meant to treat people with COVID-19. If approved, it'll be the first pill shown to work for treating COVID-19, since all other treatments so far involve needles. The company said in clinical trials that the pill cut COVID deaths and hospitalizations in half when patients took it for early symptoms. The FDA will review the company's data and could decide on approval in the next few weeks. But public health officials have been clear, vaccines are still the best way to end the pandemic. The last year and some change has been pretty dramatic for most of us, but one Navy nuclear engineer decided to crank up the dial even more by making an unsolicited offer to sell some of the US's most closely guarded nuclear submarine secrets to a foreign government. Jonathan Tebby and his wife Diana have been arrested and charged with trying to sell information on the nuclear propulsion system of an attack submarine. That's a big deal because the US has only shared that information with two countries who are also very close allies, Britain and most recently, Australia. The charging documents don't say which government exactly Tebby was trying to sell to, but ultimately the person on the other end of the months-long series of transactions was really just an undercover FBI agent. The Tebbys are expected to appear in a West Virginia court Tuesday. If you're flying, sometimes just getting to the airport can be a hassle. You ever hit traffic before an upcoming flight? Ugh. But for thousands of passengers this weekend, they had it even worse. Southwest canceled more than 2,000 flights. The company blames air traffic control issues and weather.
We checked last night and said it was fine, and woke up this morning at 5:30 and noticed it was canceled.
My husband has chemo tomorrow. We need to get home.
One airlines analyst told the AP there could be another cause of the cancellations. A work slowdown because of pilots unwilling to get a COVID-19 vaccination. The Southwest Airlines Pilots Association, which represents nearly 10,000 pilots, refuted that claim and said that it's the company's scheduling issues that's leading to a cascade of cancellations. Some travelers told Newsy they've been offered flight vouchers for the cancellations, which might not be worth much in the short term if they can't even get the planes off the ground. Because you can already tell we're keeping a close eye on the calendar in tonight's show, it's worth noting it's also Filipino American History Month. And just a few days ago, Phil-Am journalist Maria Ressa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her fight for press freedom. As Newsy's Kat Sandoval reports, Ressa and her Nobel Prize win put even more of a spotlight on Facebook and misinformation on its platform that can have international consequences.
Nobel Peace Prize recipient and Filipino-American journalist Maria Ressa fought for press freedom not only in the Philippines, but also warned of social media harms if left unchecked. During an interview last year, she told me,
Mark Zuckerberg also said, you don't want Facebook to be the arbiter of truth. Guess what? It already is, because those algorithms that were tuned for growth have chosen what they will distribute, and they distribute the lie laced with anger and hate further and faster than the really boring facts.
Her Nobel Peace Prize win puts another spotlight and pressure on Facebook, some even calling it an indictment.
I came forward at great personal risk because I believe we still have time to act.
This comes as former Facebook employee Frances Haugen testified before the Senate. She said the social media giant undermined democracy.
The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
Ressa has seen the impact of misinformation on Facebook and the platform's role in the election of President Rodrigo Duterte and a so-called war on drugs that has led to the deaths of over 12,000 Filipinos.
Our government is manipulating the public sphere, is manipulating its people, and we wanted to call an end to that, as well as to the company that enabled it, an American social media platform, Facebook.
In some developing countries, Facebook is the only way to access free internet. The United Nations found Facebook was instrumental in the genocide of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar.
We Rohingya have now become like cattle ready for slaughter. What else can I say? I am still in shock. The people who had targeted my nephew are the same people who killed him and made him a martyr. And that is the cold truth.
Facebook has since apologized for their role in Myanmar, and its founder, Mark Zuckerberg, says it has systems to stop hate speech, though some civil groups claim it isn't enough. Facebook had also taken down fake profiles in the Philippines. Still, Ressa, who once partnered with Facebook, wants the company to do more.
And the biggest problem we face right now is that the world's largest distributor of news, it's technology, Facebook, YouTube, that they actually prioritize the spread of lies laced with anger and hate over facts.
Facebook finds itself in the center of a growing storm when it comes to misinformation, not just in the U.S., but also on the global stage. Kat Sandoval, Newsy.
Much appreciated, Kat. Now, with the weekend behind us, a lot of you may have spent your Sunday watching sports and hoping to see a highlight from your favorite team. But what if your team gave you the chance to buy a highlight and keep it for yourself? After the break, we'll show you how one soccer team is trying to do just that with NFTs. Lately, lately people have been throwing the term NFTs around a lot. That's non-fungible tokens. Fair bet, these are the same people who are really into crypto. We heard from some reporting friends overseas that there's now actually a soccer team in England that's starting to publish its own NFTs. Basically, this means the soccer team is taking clips from games and creating player cards they can put on an online marketplace to make money off them. Basically, next generation trading cards. Our correspondent, Benji Heyer, explains how these virtual items are unique, how they gain value, and how other teams might follow suit.
Seaford Town FC, based on England's south coast. The club is nowhere near the bright lights of the Premier League, yet it is kicking off a phenomenon in British sport. This year it became the first soccer team ever to self-publish their own non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. It's selling collectibles like clips from matches and player cards, not physically but virtually, on the world's largest NFT marketplace. For Chairman Tom Webster, the decision was a no-brainer. The thousands of dollars made so far from NFTs are helping transform the clubhouse and other facilities.
Personally, I've got a big interest in crypto and sort of the crypto space, and saw that and thought, how cool would it be if we were the first? So a little bit of history making. The club's been around since 1887, so to do something in 2021 that's completely outside of football but still football based. And I think it's more the outside things that is raising the profile of the club. It's something to talk about, it's something different, and obviously helps raise money, which can then be invested straight back into the club.
And it's been well received by team members too.
I got a FaceTime from the chairman. I was like, oh my God, I'm on like a digital card. And I'd only seen it on the Premiership team. So yeah, it was quite a big thing.
For the club and its players, NFTs make sense. But what's the incentive for fans?
Sitting on, sterling or dollars in your bank account, you might be seeing the purchasing power of that reducing by, 10, 20% a year. And that's a big number. So it's fun. Great if you're interested in football. And obviously NFTs aren't just football. They're baseball, and they're not just sports, they're art and things like that. But there is, something about having an asset that goes up in value, which is a very powerful argument.
So how does it work? Well, essentially, you'd use cryptocurrency to purchase a sticker in digital form, or perhaps footage of your team's most famous goal. In return, you'd get a unique certification to prove you own this virtual item. It's not interchangeable, and that uniqueness gives it value. The idea is catching on. The English Premier League is about to decide whether to join the non-fungible token world by signing up with SoRare. That's a French NFT trading card game platform which just signed a deal with the Spanish top league known as La Liga. SoRare already has 500,000 registered users and a value of $4.3 billion. Meanwhile, each passing month, more and more major clubs are jumping on the blockchain bandwagon by teaming up with another company, Socios, offering fans the chance to buy digital tokens to vote on small-level issues. The more tokens, the greater the influence. Yet instead of using tangible cash, fans must buy into Socios' cryptocurrency. This can be volatile and vulnerable to financial speculation, regardless of what's happening on the pitch. Socios insists it doesn't solely promote tokens to make revenue. However, those who've researched the industry urge caution.
This stuff is extremely underregulated, just like cryptocurrency. I think lots of MPs, frankly, don't understand it. And yeah, if you buy an NFT for thousands of pounds and then the company goes bust or the thing goes to nothing overnight, then there's very little you can do. So you could get rich quick, or you could lose all your money. And just be ready to lose all your money, basically, if you get into this.
NFTs and fan tokens have also been condemned by many supporter groups, not least because of their complexity and the risks associated. Although, back at Seaford Town, they're still viewed as a game changer.
Anyone can do it, and I think more clubs should be looking into it. This is the future. Crypto and blockchain isn't going to go anywhere, and it's only going to grow. And I think people need to be embracing that sort of technology and engaging fans and engaging sort of communities. And yeah, there's no way that clubs won't be creating their own NFTs in the very short term, if not already talking about doing it.
Seaford may be the first to self-publish their own. They likely won't be the last. NFTs could soon become a staple of the world's most popular sport, and another way for die-hard fans or investors to cheer on their team. For Newsy, I'm Benji Heyer in Seaford.
Here's a question. How much would an NFT of this show go for on the open market? Add it to the merch list along with the mugs here. Now taking a look at what's next tonight, I think the pandemic has tested a lot of us, but some people are just coming off as downright rude, and y'all know who y'all are. When you're back, we're talking about why people seem to be acting out more often these days, and what can be done to turn the temperature down a bit. You know how things just feel intense right now? Like everywhere I look, especially online, I see things like people fighting on airplanes, people attacking restaurant staff, anxiety about stalling COVID vaccine rates, people yelling about whether crime rates are up or down. There seems like never-ending bad news. You feel that too, right? Doesn't it feel like a bit chaotic? The thing is, it's hard to measure something like that. Maybe I just think the world's an angrier place because of what I see online, or maybe there really is something to this pandemic of rudeness we seem to be in. From mental health experts to faith leaders, national reporter Amber Strong consulted the experts and set out to investigate what's actually going on and what we can do about this feeling.
From school board battles to restaurant attacks to airplane standoffs, more than 4,000 unruly passenger reports, and 3,000 plus mask-related incidents to be exact, the country seems a bit like a balloon, ready to pop. It's hard to know if the world is getting angrier or if it's just a matter of perception. Here's what we do know. Relationships have splintered. A recent survey from OnePoll Research says 16% of Americans have let go of 3 friendships since the pandemic started. 2 top reasons: political divides and disagreements over the COVID-19 vaccine. In times of uncertainty, some people turn to faith for answers. But if you ask any faith leader, they'll tell you the division is nothing new. At least that's what they told me when I went on my own journey to figure out what's driving the angst and how to find peace. In DC's DuPont Circle, Rabbi Lori Green tells me you have to start by defining peace.
It's not just like the absence of conflict, right? But there's kind of an internal wholeness and completion, and that's what brings peace.
She says the current absence of personal peace comes from the need to be in control.
We delude ourselves into thinking that we have a lot more control over the world than we really do. And I think something like this shows us all, especially us, you know, smart, wealthy, we know how to control everything and we run the world Westerners, that's actually not so true.
I think the world is really maddening right now, right?
And yet Yale University's chaplain Omer Bajwa says he believes the present chaos is predictable.
Life is not meant to be frictionless or without turbulence. There is turbulence that is inevitable at some level in our lives, right? At every interpersonal, societal, we would say even sort of communal, political, social level, there's going to be turbulence. The question is the response.
It goes back to that control word. Bajwa says it's important to recognize that the only person you can control is you.
What God wants to see is how do we respond, right? What is the response of the people of faith and conscience? Like, where are the good people in the world? How do we navigate this? Like, what's the best way? The Quran says, don't repel evil with evil, repel evil with good.
City University of New York Director of Innovation and Mental Health Victoria Nyo says when dealing with the anger of others, compassion goes a long way for you and them.
When something happens on the street that typically, might upset you, then it decreases that upset when you recognize that, you know what, this person might just have had a really bad day. Maybe that person just found out that someone they love was hospitalized, or someone they love passed away, or they just lost their job.
Christian therapist Stacey Mayo agrees with that compassion element.
The idea of the vaccine, for example, people have said, I feel really nervous about this. This seems new. I don't know what this will do to my body. And I can't imagine that people who have chosen to have the vaccine wouldn't feel that as well. And so being able to find the common ground of, we actually have a lot in common here. Let's start from that place.
She also says she understands when people need to part ways.
Hopefully people will continue to try to engage and not just end the relationships. But I do think because the pandemic continues, anxiety can be so difficult to bear. Some people have said, I don't have the bandwidth to continue this relationship. As much as I want to, it's too hard.
Back in DC, Rabbi Green says there's actually comfort in knowing that she doesn't have all the answers.
I think really the best you can do is learn to live a normal life, to move on, to not be stuck with it, right? To make peace with your past, make peace with yourself, take a nice walk, enjoy the sunshine, meditate, do yoga, whatever's, journal, whatever's gonna work for you.
Amber Strong, Newsy, Washington.
Here to talk with us a little more about that story is Newsy's Amber Strong. Amber, can you tell us a bit more about why you wanted to reach out to faith leaders for something like this? I mean, what did you find that they agreed on in this moment?
Well, people have been reaching out for faith, but to faith leaders since forever. So what makes me any different? I want to find out what parallels they had and try to put those parallels together. And one big parallel was that none of them were surprised by this. Imam Bajwa, who we mentioned in the piece, talked about Islam and the Quran talking about turbulence and tribulation and how that's going to be present in the world. Rabbi Green pointed to, ancient texts and how the ancients were always living in a state of uncertainty. There was fierce political debate at the time of Christ. And so none of this is surprising, but how do we tell a modern audience how to navigate some of these things?
And I'm also curious to know why you wanted to also speak to a number of mental health experts. I mean, what were some of the things they agreed upon when it came to finding, inner peace?
There's two different things happening in this country right now. We have a documented mental health crisis. And a lot of the faith leaders told me the first thing they do when people come to them is stop and evaluate the situation and say, is this prolonged? Is this ongoing? Is this something serious where they need professional a mental health specialist to step in? If it's not, and it's a person who is just like, I don't want any part of the anger that I see. I don't want any part of the division and the arguing that I see. Then they give a different sort of advice to these people. And the funny thing is a lot of their advice did align with the mental health professionals that I talked to. One reoccurring theme was nature, that there's peace in nature. There's peace in getting outside, going for a walk, sort of separating yourself from everything. And that can be backed up by science because we know that there are sort of healing properties that come from exercise and walking. Another parallel thing was meditation or quiet time. Are you doing yoga, as Rabbi Green said she does? Are you in prayer? And if you're not a religious person, are you just having quiet time to sort of get rid of the noise? And one more thing, when it comes to shutting off noise, what are you ingesting? Are you watching a lot of divisive television? Are you reading divisive things online or on social media? That's another place of noise that you can control. You may not be able to control the world, but there are certain aspects that you can control, and that's certainly one of them.
I feel like you're speaking directly to me and telling me to shut off some of my devices, try to be quiet for a little bit, something, my mom can attest to. It's very difficult for me. And then just going outside and going for a walk every once in a while. Amber Strong, thank you so much for bringing this story to us and helping us make it plain. We appreciate you, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christian.
Many thanks, Amber. Some wise words from the folks in that story. I'm taking notes, and some of y'all should too. Next up, we're looking at crucial care programs feeling the pinch of the pandemic and its impact on you during this coming flu season. Stick with us.
What do you think the future looks like?
From Newsy, renowned journalists and filmmakers, comes a celebration of storytelling.
Are we in a killer robots arms race right now?
When the suspect admits to it,
I'm not going to argue the law with you.
New features every week. Newsy Docs presents Sunday nights at 9/8 Central, only on Newsy.
As many folks get older, their families often look for a safe place they can call home. But these days, considering a nursing home for your parents or grandparents may not be an option. There's a shortage of staff nationwide due to both the pandemic and to low pay. National reporter Chris Conti explains what nursing homes are doing to attract new staff and make more room for new residents.
It is hard not to notice the darkness which has enveloped nursing homes across the country. Empty beds, empty hallways, at a time when they have never been more needed.
Every day is a new battle. There is no such thing as we've turned the corner, everything's going to be fine.
Paul Liistro's family has owned Manchester Manor Nursing Home in Connecticut since it first opened in 1966.
What we're sure of is that every day in this country, 10,000 people become 65.
But this is the first time he can ever remember being so short-staffed.
People for the first time started recognizing that maybe this isn't ever going to go away.
At full staff, this nursing home has 175 nurses working. Right now, that number is closer to 145. Because of regulations, they are one nurse shy of opening this new wing of the nursing home. One nurse is all they need. Instead, 16 brand new beds are sitting here empty.
As long as the beds are not filled, it's always a sign of we're short-staffed.
So what's happening? Part of it is pay. Nursing homes have been underfunded by Medicare and Medicaid for decades, keeping salaries low. Part of it, though, is simply the pandemic.
It was pandemic fatigue. People said, there's no amount of money that will keep me here anymore. And that's when we started losing people.
All of this has implications for the rest of the healthcare system. If a patient can't be sent to a bed to recover at a nursing home after, say, a surgery, that person then ends up having to stay in a hospital longer, at a time when ER capacity is already being taxed.
It's been a really challenging 2 years.
That's David Gifford with the American Healthcare Association. He's seeing an unprecedented exodus at nursing homes.
The staff are exhausted. They're sort of burnt out. And as in many professions, many of them are thinking of leaving.
Since the start of the pandemic, an estimated 400,000 people have left the profession. Half of all nursing homes in the U.S. are so short-staffed they aren't accepting new patients. In an effort to entice more people to enter the nursing home industry, AHCA is lobbying Congress to offer loan forgiveness and tax incentives to workers.
The question is how are we going to get them to come to our setting? And that's where we've been focusing our efforts.
Back at Manchester Manor, Paul Liistro is trying to be more competitive, raising starting salaries from $17 an hour to $20 an hour. Even that, though, hasn't been enough.
What we didn't expect, though, was everyone else to start raising their salaries. So, yes, so we're competing with Walmart and Amazon and any number of other, even some fast food locations.
And so this industry that is so critical to this country's aging population continues to navigate its way through the pandemic as needed beds sit empty. In Manchester, Connecticut, I'm Chris Conti.
As we just saw, the pandemic's impacts are especially wide-ranging in the business of care, and those impacts on care extend to preparation for this year's flu season. You might recall that the 2020 flu season was pretty mild, in part, experts say, because of COVID guidelines like social distancing and wearing masks. But as national reporter Maya Rodriguez tells us, this coming flu season will likely be different, and doctors suggest taking steps now to protect yourself.
After a so-called twindemic of COVID-19 and the flu failed to materialize last year.
Because of all the masks and because of all the precautions, we basically did not have a flu season.
This year's flu season is expected to roar back.
This is not the year you want to mess around.
Dr. Anthony Santella is an infectious disease expert and a professor of health administration policy at the University of New Haven in Connecticut.
The flu is incredibly difficult to predict. I know everyone wants that crystal ball. What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? Even outside of COVID. And that's very challenging.
But he says there are signs and circumstances that point to a far more active upcoming flu season.
Children are back at school. People are back at work. People are socializing, traveling both domestically and abroad. And that means that those bugs, viruses like what we're talking about, but also bacteria and other things are circulating.
Right now, the CDC has yet to release a flu forecast, but their tracking of confirmed cases show most of the country is experiencing either a minimal or low number of cases, with the exception of Mississippi, which is seeing a moderate level of flu activity. But Dr. Santella says that could change as the weather begins to get colder and people spend more time indoors, coupled with COVID fatigue.
We know the data is pretty clear this year that people feel burdened, they feel frustrated, and they feel tired by continuing to maintain those protective health behaviors.
Which is why experts say getting a flu shot by the end of October is so important. They're developed based on the flu strains circulating in other parts of the world.
This year, they've done things a little bit differently, where instead of having some vaccines that protect against 2 strains and some that protect against 4, all 4 major vaccine candidates protect against all 4 strains.
And for those who have yet to get a COVID vaccine, Dr. Santella says it's safe to get both together.
You can get them at the same time. There's no harm. There's no counteracting of the products.
Vaccines created to help people avoid the worst effects of 2 deadly viruses. I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Do us a quick solid and mention us on social media using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. We want to hear your thoughts on the show, and if there's anything you might want to see more of, let us know. If not, I might cut my eyes at you, but I'll be over it in like 5 seconds. We're coming up on the end of the show, but before we put this thing in park, we want to take one more lap on today's top stories in a segment we like to call Closing the Loop. So let's get to it. As waves of the pandemic have slammed the country, American Indians and Alaskan Natives were dying at disproportionate rates. Now, more than a year and a half into the pandemic, while other parts of the country can't agree on mask usage and struggle with low vaccination rates, many tribes have made sure to make the most out of the tools available. Newsy's Allison Herrera shows us how the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma is using their sovereignty to try and protect themselves and others around them.
What they told me was, we have to protect our people with masks and we have to encourage vaccines. Very simple from my standpoint, and I said, let's do it. It's worked here in our building. I think Cherokee Nation government buildings have been the safest place in any community in this region because we've adhered pretty strictly to this.
But the governor's ban on mask mandates doesn't apply to the Cherokee Nation. The reason comes down to one word: sovereignty.
Because we were here before the United States was founded or before a single state was established, including the state of Oklahoma.
If things seem a little tense to you right now, you're not alone. I'm thinking about shouting matches at school board meetings, violent meltdowns on airplanes, etc. Some people have even seen friendships dissolve because of political disagreements or thoughts over COVID vaccines. There's a so-called pandemic of rudeness happening right now, and in times of strife, a lot of people look toward religious counselors and/or mental health experts to help them navigate choppy waters. Some of the folks we spoke to said this moment is about control, or the lack thereof, and how we should respond to that dynamic.
At every interpersonal, societal, we would say even sort of communal, political, social level, there's going to be turbulence. The question is the response.
I think really the best you can do is learn to live a normal life, to move on, to not be stuck with it, right? To make peace with your past, make peace with yourself, take a nice walk, enjoy the sunshine, meditate, do yoga, whatever's, journal, whatever's gonna work for you.
For real, keep it calm and cool out there, folks. We want to do what we can to lower the temperature during these heated times. Hopefully you enjoyed In the Loop tonight. Come back every weeknight as we press pause on the news cycle for a little deep dive into these big stories. I'm Christian Bryant. Stick with Newsy for Evening Debrief coming up next.
What if the news was different and covered more than one side of the story?
Justice wasn't served.
So you can make up your own mind.
I love this so much.
Introducing the new point of view. Yours. Newsy. Watch free 24-hour news.